Welcome back to the Navy Sports Magazine. Time to talk a little women's track and field now with Rosemary Brinegar. And got to ask you, when kids grow up,
Mhm.
not everybody grabs a pole vault and
Yeah.
decides to start participating in track and field. How did you get involved in the pole vault?
Yeah, that's the question I get asked every time. I think it's just kind of such a weird sport, a weird event. But when I was in middle school, I was watching the Olympics with my dad and happened to walk in right when the women's pole vault came on. Thought it looked really cool. And then that following year, we had tryouts for the track team in middle school. So I was in seventh grade and I was over at the hurdles. I was trying that out. And they said, the pole vault's, the tryouts going to be at the same time. Which one do you want to do? And I happened to run over to the pole vault and
Were there a
picked it
lot of
up.
people there when you got there?
Yeah, there actually were. There were probably like 12, seventh grade girls there trying it
Sure,
out.
that's good.
And the coach picked four of us, said you all look coachable, and just didn't really stop.
For mastering the technique, I mean, clearly, we've all watched the Olympics, we all watch World
Hmm.
Championships. We did your indoor meet with Army on the Patriot League Network, but you're just mastering the technique. I'm not sure, and I think if you even talk to Olympic pole vaulters now, I'm not sure they ever say you master it. But how long did it take you to
Hmm.
be able to figure out, okay, I can get over the bar doing this, and then obviously continuing to refine that
Hmm.
as the years went along.
I think it's definitely, it's one of those sports where you're never going to be perfect at it. I think it kind of comes in chunks or waves. First you get comfortable holding the pole, and then you kind of get comfortable. You start to feel a little bend in it,
Yeah.
and that can come in, every couple of years, or it can come even when I came here and I got, a new coach, a different coaching style. And it's kind of funny to look back and think about, I don't remember those specific times where, I started finally, getting a little more inverted, or I started turning in the middle of the air. But I can look back and say this is where I was then, and this is where I am now. So it's kind of crazy to see how it all comes together.
I was going to say the progress has got to be, and when you look, at your numbers throughout your career here and
Mhm.
how each year you have steadily increased, you feel that I don't know if the word is pride, but certainly the progress and the satisfaction of being able to, you know, the we talk about in track and field,
Mhm.
and other sports like that where you can do your personal best that day. It still may not be good enough to win because you can't control how the
Yeah.
other person competes. But when you can get to your mark, is
Mhm.
there a sense of satisfaction at least that day that you knew you did the best that you could, and maybe that day the competitor was just maybe a smidge better?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny talking to people who aren't in track and field because they'll ask you how you did, and you say, well, I had a pretty good meet, and they'll ask you if you won. You say, no, I got eighth place,
Right,
but
right.
I did the thing that I wanted to do that day, and I think especially with pole vaulting, it's so much doing the same thing over and over and over again, and when you finally get those 2 inches, you finally get those 6 inches that you've been working for. There's definitely a lot of pride in it. So, just kind of every day trying to beat yourself, trying to be your personal best. That's what I really, enjoy in the event.
Can you feel, especially, and I'll ask it this way, when you don't necessarily get uh, a vault that you're happy with,
Mm-hmm.
can you go back and run it through your mind where you feel that maybe you were off at, and then on your next opportunity, know what you have to do to try and do that? Is that easy to figure out if you don't get so close to what you're obviously trying to get to?
I think it's easy to point it out. Povel's such a constant feedback type of system. I'll be a single step off the pit, and I'm talking to my coach. What exactly went wrong in that jump, and you can try to fix it in the next one. But then you got to find a balance of, if you're focusing too much on that one thing, then your approach might be a little off, and
Mm-hmm.
then you don't get really the perfect formula, for what you want to do. So it's easy for sure to start pointing out, like the run was a little funky on that one, or you didn't really jump at takeoff. But it's harder, once you get on that second attempt, third attempt, and that's what you want to focus on. It's a little trickier.
What's the difference? between indoor and outdoor? Obviously, your indoor numbers are terrific, and
Yeah.
you've already gotten to your outdoor
you.
mark already this year. But what are the differences competing indoors as opposed to outdoors?
Yeah, well, with outdoor, we just have so many more factors to take into account. You know, you can have uh, the temperature is for sure a tough thing to consider, especially with pole vaulting. You know, you got to keep your hands warm.
Yep.
Our coach preaches taking those hand warmers. And then the big thing with pole vault is the wind. You know, you can have a steady wind. Tailwind is kind of like a pole vaulter's best friend. You know, they just kind of sweep you up, help you get those last couple inches. But then you also have those gusts of wind, so you can be 2 steps away from the box. You're ready to plant your pole, and all of a sudden you just kind of see it pushed off trajectory, and you kind of have to bail out because you're running full speed. So those are probably the harder factors to take into account.
When you and again, every meet is different. You could be in a meet with 30 or 40 competitors, and maybe one with only 15 or 16 competitors. What is the easier meet? Because I'm sure sitting around and waiting for opportunities can't be easy, when you're trying to stay in rhythm and stay focused
Mm-hmm.
on the task at hand. Is there any difference in the meets depending on how many competitors you have?
Well, I'd say it's probably a little bit easier when there's less people. You know, if you have 10 people that are all at the same height, kind of same skill level, even on the same height, from your first attempt to your second attempt, it could be 10 or 15 minutes. But by the same token, if you have a bigger field, it's usually a little bit more competitive. You can watch those other girls and, just kind of get that fire in you that makes you want to jump a little higher that day.
Is there a rhythm and a feel to it?
I think every meet's different. You're always focusing on, the things that you want to work on for that meet. But I would say it's probably different, person to person, meet to meet.
Speaking of meet to meet, how difficult is it to keep the emotions, the excitement
Mhm.
under control, especially during the course of the week when you're wearing
Yeah.
the Letterman sweater there? We all know what that means, but how important is it to keep that level focus during the course of the week and keep your preparation on point to try and compete at your best coming up against your arch rivals on the weekend?
Of course, I think the week leading up to Army, it's so much more nerve wracking because all of our classmates see that we're wearing a sweater every day and they know something's up. They ask us, how are you feeling about Army? You're going to beat them. And I think as it gets closer and closer to the meet, your nerves they definitely get higher. You definitely feel like your classmates are kind of counting on you to pull this one out. The week leading up is sticking to your routine, not changing a thing because that's what's gotten you there. That's what's made you successful. So just kind of keeping a level head.
Whenever there's a coaching change, I'm sure you all are anxious. You're like, oh, okay, who's the coach? You start doing
Mm-hmm.
background on the coach even maybe before you meet him when they make the announcement.
Of course.
But having someone come in of Coach Cook's regard
Mm-hmm.
and obviously seeing what his resume and background and how exciting has it been to now learn from him and try to refine and get better as a competitor?
Yeah, Coach Cook is an amazing coach. It's so fun to watch him talk with the sprinters and the jumpers, and watch them talk about the technical cool aspect for what they need to change. And my interactions with him have been so helpful, and I think I've definitely grown learning from someone of his caliber. It's been crazy to see the shift in the teams, especially since we've become a lot more integrated with the men's and women's team
Right.
working out. And it's been really cool to see that too manifest in both teams kind of taking their strengths and weaknesses and working together and learning from each other. We didn't really know, any people on the men's team, or they didn't really know some of the women. And, now we can, interact more at the meets. We know, he's a 400 runner and this is the time he's going for. This is that 100-meter run. This is their strength, and I want to get on working out the block. So I'm going to go ask him for his advice. And I think going into Westby now, it's a little bit more of, the track team instead of the men's and the women's team. It's been really cool to see.
Appreciate the time today. Continued success. Good luck this weekend.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right,
Appreciate it.
Rosemary Brinegar joining us here on the Navy Sports Magazine.